All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's Wednesday, and Lebang and Ryan are here, and I am here, and most importantly, you are here. Otherwise, what would be the point? I mean, you do a show, but if you're doing a show, no one's listening. What the hell are you doing the show for?
You're doing your show for the spirits, Gareth.
You're putting the hours in.
You know what I'm saying? You got to get your 10,000 hours in. Even if you only have one listener, that one listener will appreciate anything that you have to say.
Well, I don't know. I think that sounds like quite a lot of bullshit, but okay. So what's news? What's happening? Lebang, what's going on with you?
So my skin feels like incredibly fresh. Like I kind of woke up slightly late this morning, but luckily when I got into the office, I found that one of our colleagues had purchased an office lotion, like a cute little small hand lotion, right? Nothing too extra.
Okay.
But it's just sitting there on the table. And I remember hearing like yesterday or last week that, hey guys, this is for all of you to use if you need it. So I'm like, damn, I need it this morning. Like I was like dry. So I just decided to apply the lotion. So I'm feeling really moist currently on the arms and around here. I feel really good.
Office lotion.
Yeah, you see.
Yes. I mean, look at that. No cracks, no nothing. It's just clear skin. You can see it's moist.
Lotion for the office.
The office. If at any point you're working in the sun and you just suddenly feel like, oh, this heat, you can just grab on the office lotion and apply it. I think it's great. And I'm very grateful to the person who purchased it.
But how many other people use that office lotion?
I don't know. The
Doesn't
people
matter.
that work in the office. It's for us. I know you don't.
Is it a
Because you
problem?
just don't believe in lotion as a concept. So.
Yeah, no, it's
So
It's
what, Ryan, you don't believe in office lotion?
no.
No, Gareth, he doesn't believe in lotion, full stop. Whether it's office or home or anything, it's just a no-no.
Oh, you're
This
not a
has been
big you're not a big lotion guy, Ryan. Is this your problem?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's not my thing at all.
Well, now you need to. We're gonna have to force you to explain yourself. Why are you so anti-lotion?
It's not that I'm anti-lotion. I don't mind people who use lotion. I just thought the office lotion is a bad idea.
Why don't you, as Ryan, as an individual, as self, not believe in the concept of lotion? We'll get to office lotion in a moment. Where not as an individual. Why are you so against it? What did little old lotion do to you?
No, I just don't like it. I don't like applying extra stuff to my skin. It's
Extra. So what is the first thing you apply to your skin?
no, like even sunblock is that one. Like I struggle to just put sunblock on regularly. You know what I mean?
So nothing goes on your skin after a shower. Just nothing.
Nothing.
Sure.
I've never needed to.
Well, I mean, let's hope you can still say that in 20 years.
No, so the only time I used
You're
to
gonna
do it.
look like a crocodile in 20 years' time.
Dog.
I only do it like when I've got like fresh tattoos. That's when I'll like put lotion on it. But that's only because it really needs it to feed the skin to heal. So
To each his own. Let's not kick off the morning like this. You know, like if you want to lotion up, do your thing. If you truly do not, that's also okay. But
it's not okay. Don't let him get away.
You know what the thing is, Gareth? We've had this conversation for so long. Like since I met Ryan,
since I started working here.
Since he started working at Cliff Central, like it came up and he was like, yeah, no, lotion is for girls. I was like, whoa, what? And yeah, like we haven't been able to convert him since then. And in 20 years' time, we will see if those ankles and those elbows are still agreeing with the anti-lotion motion.
No, Ryan's in big trouble. One of these days he's gonna see like he's made a terrible mistake.
Are you telling me every other guy carries like lotion in his bag or pocket?
Or just has it. You don't have to carry it. Just have it in your bathroom, bro. Have it in your house, in your vicinity.
We just told you. Dory bought the lotion for the whole office, and you could use it on your ashy ass elbows, but you refused to. You're dragging the whole standard down for everybody. That's the problem.
This is a whole bad look. The whole of Cliff Central is falling because of yo ashy ass, bro.
No, but also, guys, I just office lotion as a concept.
Yeah.
Please tell me it's a squeeze bottle. It's not the.
It's the squeeze one, so we're not all dipping our fingers into anything.
That's
no. That would be. Then I would also be against it if it was like everybody. fingers
Guys,
in.
Like it violates some kind of
no,
health
no,
code.
no. We're not savages around these parts. You know, we are good human beings who are learned. We have squeeze bottle lotions, which I think is awesome. We'll see how long it lasts, though.
Do you have like a favorite brand or?
No, but I've got one for my face. I've got one for my body.
What, you have different ones?
Yes, because my skin reflects. It operates differently. Like my face is not the same as the skin here.
Did you not listen to Dr. Mark on Thursday last week with Pumi, where he came and told us all about skin?
I did. Well, I listened to it afterwards.
In one ear and out the other? Is that what you're telling me?
Mm-hmm.
I just struggle with the concept of having to put like lotion on afterwards, like
after showering.
Everything becomes slippery, and then it goes in your car keys and your phone and your laptop.
Ryan,
that's so wild.
I'm not okay, Ryan. I'm not the world's expert on this. Yeah, the lotion police, but in winter especially, like now it's summer, you probably don't have to worry so much, but in winter things get so dry and shitty, you know, and
sweaty.
Sweaty in summer.
Just like wash it off and then like, keep it moisture. Like some oils are even so lovely. I use coconut oil sometimes. It's so nice to just like love your skin. You know what I'm saying? Like just put self-love, #self-love. You know what the thing is? When you get into a relationship, you'll see things start to shift. Suddenly you'll care about different things. No, hear me out. No. A lot of guys generally don't give a rat's ass about these things. And then they fall in love and they're like, whoa, then their girlfriend will, start introducing certain things like, why don't you try this? And then you'll be a guy that has a face routine. And that's cool. It's
right.
Just, now you're single.
I've got good shower gel. That's...
And then you wash it off with water. And then after that...
I can't. Okay, we're not going to give. You know what? Stop this conversation.
Yeah, no, we can't convert him. We can't convert. I've tried.
Also, I mean, I really don't care. So, Ryan, in 10 years' time, you can look like a crocodile if you want to. It's none of our business. It's not our problem. You go ahead, dude. Do whatever. You
go on with your bad, ashy self.
Yeah, go on with your disgusting, gross, ashy. We don't care. You should live your life. All right, so let's get into some other stuff because there's actually quite a lot happening in the world this morning, and we need to be the ones that inform you about what that is. Otherwise, you'll walk through the day like a fucking zombie, and you won't know what's happening. So let's look at what's important in the news so far today. And the first of these stories is almost 50% of South Africa's drinking water is unsafe for consumption.
Oh, now, that's scary.
I hate to start with bad news, but... We've all been talking about this. You know, we don't have electricity. Our rivers are polluted. There's litter everywhere. Places falling apart. Our parastatals don't work, etc., etc., etc. Now, I hate to add to that, but the Blue Drop report has found 46% of water that was, these are tests that qualify, that were carried out by municipalities between 2021 and 2022, ranked poorly in microbiological quality compliance. So, the National Department of Water and Sanitation says that there's been a major decline in water quality in the past decade. Gauteng scored the highest percentage of drinking water systems with excellent or good performance. So Rand Water still doing us proud there. We can be pleased with that because obviously, it was run pretty well for a long time. I don't know if that's still the case, but I'd say still 62%. It's a bit iffy, right?
Yeah, it's not great. That's like is that a C or a D? It's a C. That's not good.
That's a C. That could be improved. In the South Africa of 2023, a C is like, wow, that's great. Yeah. Those numbers are terrific. We'll take them, right? Anyway, apparently the Western Cape scores 50%. 90% of drinking water in the Northern Cape was of poor or bad quality.
Oof. Oh my God.
Ugh. Right, and the Northern Cape.
And water is the one thing that you actually need to be straight in order for a country to function. Like if your water is compromised, that is big shit.
You're like automatically third world.
Shitty
water equals third world.
No, absolutely. I mean, people use water for everything.
But I mean, we had cholera in Hammanskraal not so long ago. I mean, this is not the kind of stuff that you should have in a modern. Functioning democracy. It's just embarrassing. It's not good. Little and dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So there's something to think about. But I thought it's important to just at least pay attention to this stuff because you go up to a tap and you think, oh, well, this is clean, drinkable water. Oh, no. Carl
Guarantee.
says, this is why I always pour myself half a glass of water. I always have the good 50%.
Carl is wide awake this morning.
Well, I mean, this is why our ancestors couldn't drink water and they were mostly pissed all the time, is because like, at least with alcohol, it doesn't contain a whole bunch of microbes. So all of our ancestors were drunk most of the time because they didn't drink the water.
So at what point do we put out like a thing for people to say buy bottled water? Because I remember when I traveled to the US, we went to New York, and everyone said when we landed, don't drink the water in New York. Buy bottled water.
Yeah, you don't. That's very good advice.
Are we at that point now where we have to tell people, like, don't drink the water here?
Hope not. You can drink 50% of the water, like Carl says. Just drink the good 50%, and you'll be fine. Leanne says, thank goodness it's summer in the Cape. I'm finally able to wake up early enough to watch live on YouTube. I stand for this team.
There we go.
Used the new lingo since the episode. I think it was just this Monday that we learned these new terms.
Yeah.
Stan. Oof, we are years late.
There were some very up-to-date ones. I should have actually saved that for Wednesday, and we would have tested you, Lebang.
Yeah, because I mean, if Stan is on that list, then I mean, I know we have some Eminem fans in the crowd, so shocking.
Lebang does know. She's on the Twitter streets, Gareth. So
I'm involved. Hey, I'm trying to keep up with my kids. My eldest just turned 12 last week, and like sometimes he comes home and he says things that I'm like, yeah, totally, me too. And I'm like, crap, what does this mean? And like, and I have to be that cool mom who just understands everything.
Yeah, but you also have to know, because otherwise you won't understand what your bloody kids are saying, and you'll feel
like
you're out of touch with them, not just in terms of being cool, but like even understanding them.
No, it's definitely, it has gotten to the point where it's just basic conversation now. They speak so much in that lingo that one just has to know exactly what is being said.
Congo Christmas saying, this show be bussing, no crap, for real.
Yeah, I see. I don't think you saw Monday's part when we were going through all these words.
That is hilarious. Like when you use it in one sentence like that, Congo Chris, it's hilarious. Bussin', no cap, for real. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, we're learning. This is why this show is good. This show is keeping all of us on our toes, which is good. We try and find the things that are, and we don't mock it, except where there is already a word for something.
Sure.
Because why, cool. Why move into like 17 words where you can have just one that does the job?
Sure.
And then this is interesting. The ANC has categorically denied that they're broke, and they say that they are meeting their financial obligations.
Yeah.
Lie to us some more.
But this is what all people who are broke do. They all say this. Have you ever met a broke person who just admits they're broke?
Well,
I feel like if the sheriff pulls outside of your place of work,
you're
definitely broke.
So apparently the party averted an embarrassing situation on Monday. This is what Ryan's talking about. Almost having its equipment seized by the court sheriff due to 102 million rand in debt it owed to Israel-Hamas Investments. The printing and marketing company owned, or rather produced, election banners for the ANC in 2019 and was not paid. This is 2019. It's 2023 now. That's 4 fucking years that they haven't paid them.
So now what? It's almost like 102 million or something like that.
It's 102 million.
That's wild to me. I was thinking about this last night. Like, they're basically asking Cyril to buy the ANC. Is basically what they're doing.
After success, well, he has, hasn't he already done that? Isn't that what he did at Nasrec? He bought the ANC.
Did he?
Yes. After successive losses in the Gauteng High Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal, the ANC approached the Constitutional Court in an effort to get out of paying Ezulwini. Now, if you have a contractual dispute with someone, there is never a reason that needs to get to the Constitutional Court. It is not a constitutional matter. It's not new law. It's just legal tactics. This is Stalingrad's approach to law, where you will you will take this on appeal until you eventually run out of courts. And the Constitutional Court is at the top of that appeal system. There is no reason they have to adjudicate a matter between someone who's paid and someone who has not paid. It's ridiculous. Anyway, the ANC's national spokesperson, Mahlengi Bengu Motsiri, I don't know why they have a national spokesperson and they have a provincial spokesperson and they have Fikile Mbalula, and
you know why.
You know why.
You know why. Come on, Doug.
Propelled. Anyway, said the party did have money to pay them. Well, why don't you pay them, motherfuckers?
Do you think this company just like kept this in their pocket until the upcoming election year, and now they're like using it as all right?
No, they just pay what you owe. That's
but it's been 4 years,
right?
But it's probably accumulated. Now it's 102 million.
You know what I'm getting so frustrated by? It's like people who complicate everything. This is a printing company and a marketing company. They did work in 2019. That's like if we started doing features and ads and sponsorship opportunities for our clients, and they didn't pay us for 4 years. Now, if we suddenly want our money 4 years later, or we've been trying for 4 years to get it, someone says, "Oh no, it's just before the elections that Cliff Central's going after this guy."
Bro, pay us.
Pay the money.
That's all.
You sons of bitches. What is wrong with these guys in the ANC that they just do not pay them? They don't pay anybody on time. They don't even pay their own staff.
Greed. It's a hell of a drug. It's a hell of a drug.
If you work for somebody and they don't pay you on time, stop working for them. Get out of that job immediately. That is the first sign that those people are not to be trusted as employers.
They don't take you seriously. They don't.
If you're in business with someone and they don't pay you, get out of business with them. Yeah. That is the first sign that they are delinquent. They are never going to be on time with anything. They're never going to do any of the things you need to do in order to exchange trade, services, value, whatever it is. They're
just not the right people. Don't do business with people like that. And sometimes it's the people that come across as like, oh, they've got their things together. They'd never do stuff like that. And then you get into bed with them and you start working. And then in the 11th hour, people disappear. It happens. It's terrible. But like, just run. As Gareth is saying, just don't continue to engage with people like that on a business level, because not everybody respects the process of what real business actually is and how things operate.
I feel like it's a fair ask for a deposit in situations.
Oh
like
yeah,
this, right?
I mean, you have to. You absolutely have to.
This is a good example.
But I mean, asking the ANC for a deposit is like, did you really expect that you were going to get paid? I'm just curious. Like, if I ever got a phone call and they were like, hey, we need your agency to do blah, blah for the ANC, I'd be like, 100% upfront or 100%. Please F off. Honestly, like, your reputation is not, it kind of speaks for itself as far as how you guys do business dealings. And no, it's not going to be a brown envelope thing. 100% or nothing.
Yeah, well, Leanne says, how can they pay when they're sponsoring Fikile Mbalula with Teletubby tracksuits? Correct.
Cold.
Conga buying G-Wagons and Hennessy at Conca to have money to pay people that they owe money to, including their own employees.
Sad stuff.
And Bakabantu says, quite rightly, he's paying attention this morning. Courts move slowly. The ANC have been throwing money at appealing instead of paying fines. Shows you that the ruling party sees themselves as above the people and above the law. Well, no, I think you could argue that, but they also just see themselves as, they see the law as a tool. They don't see it as something that should apply to keep society. This is their whole philosophy. And again, I'm gonna lay it out as clearly as I can in one sentence. If you vote for these people, you are voting for people who don't believe that the law is a system by which we can operate a civilized and mutually beneficial society. You're actually voting for people who are using the law as a tool to get out of paying debts that they have. That's all. They see
amongst other things.
These are terrible people. Just terrible, terrible people. Morning. But they will find money to pay one of the brothers that are printing the shirts for the ANC. Vote for the party that will give you free sweets, says Daryl. Yeah. I mean, let's just stick to this story for a minute, Daryl, before we start assuming a whole lot about it. There's enough. Listen, we don't have to make shit up.
There's many.
We don't have to sit here and generate nonsense stories on TikTok about the ANC because the real stories are bad enough.
They already nonsense. It's just a pile of nonsense on top of nonsense. It's enough. Honestly, if people are still voting for ANC next year, big sigh. Big sigh.
I mean, Carl says, how many posters do you get for 102 million? A lot.
As well.
No, 102 million in posters. That you could pretty much plaster every street in Johannesburg with posters. And it doesn't help, clearly, because they're voting. The number of people who vote for them is going down and down and down and down. So what a waste of money.
Oh no, that's a ridiculous amount for posters. I mean, it's a printer, it's ink, it's labor, it's paper.
It's hectic.
102 million? Woo! Hectic.
All right. So those are some of the stories in the news at the moment. The ANC going broke, water not so great. And then a former Tesla employee has told the BBC he believes the technology powering the firm's self-driving vehicles is not safe enough to be used on public roads. Oh, well, okay. Guess what? A former employee goes and tells stories about things they don't like about their former employee. Again, surprise, surprise. If you want to hear bad things about someone, just ask a former employee. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's
what
plenty ex-Apple employees and.
So listen, I mean, just as it's dumb to hero worship the hell out of Elon the way that Ryan does, it's dumb. Like, he's not a superhuman. He's just another human being.
He's not a god.
He seems to be running his companies extremely well. He's full of good ideas. He's a bundle of energy. He's definitely like different to the rest of us in some way, but he's not a god. Similarly, if you have a major axe to grind with him, as it seems so many people do in the world, particularly people who are upset that he's taken over X and removed a lot of the very, very excruciating political bias that was there before. I mean, X was basically just a tool for the American left to just bludgeon everybody in their way and to dox them and to harass them and to crowd them out and all of that stuff. When Elon took over X, he pissed off a lot of people. And you can see the BBC is definitely on this page. So what do? They actually go and they dig and dig in the trash until they find someone who was fired or someone who resigned from Tesla. And then they say to the guy, what terrible stuff can you tell us about Elon? And what terrible stuff can you tell us about Tesla? What can you tell us about X or SpaceX or any of the other companies? And then they muckrake. This is what they're doing. And if anyone can't see that, then I think you're an idiot too. Anyway, he's confirmed that, there's that, guess what? That electric cars are not perfect. Oh, really? Can you imagine finding someone at Nissan and you get them just to talk about all the accidents that have happened in Nissans?
Yeah.
You know what would be wild, Gareth? In like 5 years' time, if like all of this turns out to be ridiculously true and this guy was definitely right and there's something to worry about and the Tesla cars just start killing people. I mean,
what's more likely now? I mean, we've got Tesla cars on the roads already. And I don't think they're responsible for the majority of accidents, just by the way.
Oh no, of course not. Of course not.
So
but if this person works this closely inside the company, I mean, it's not coming out of nowhere completely. It goes as far as saying he won an award for the Blueprint for Free Speech Whistleblowing Prize. I mean, he's putting his life on the line, bro.
Because he's talking about the company he used to work for, and it suits everybody who's anti-Elon in the media at the moment. That's not a conspiracy theory. We know that's true.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope that in the next 10 years, rather they fix their current solutions versus things continue to get, unfixed.
So he said the last 6 months and the experience of being a whistleblower had been terrifying. I barely sleep at night sometimes, he told BBC. Does this sound like a well-adjusted person? I mean, is Elon Musk stalking his house trying to kill him so he can silence him about Tesla's cars? I love it when people say that, they live in fear. And then you find out there's nobody's ever even threatened them. Nobody's ever even told them on the roads, hey, get into your own lane.
You see, most of the accidents would be human mistakes, I'm assuming. I mean, it's like, for example, we bring up the Bajaj all the time, right?
Right.
Now I don't know. Now I don't know about you, but I've been seeing a ton of Bajajas on the highway, and they're not allowed on there.
They're not allowed on the highway. Now, whose fault
So-
is that? Is that the manufacturers or is that the drivers?
Well, that's it, right? And it's like, is there a Bajaj hotline number that we need to call when we
my
see them on
God.
the highway? Like, no, because they
Yes.
got on there and they can only do like
Metro
80
Police.
k's an hour.
It's called the Metro Police, and you can call them. I mean, of course, electric cars, and especially the fully electric driving, the
self-driving.
total autonomous driving cars. Of course, we've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But I love the way that we will dig up some dude who left the company probably 3 or 4 years ago. Now we're asking him questions in an effort to delegitimize all autonomous cars. I really don't understand why people would be persuaded by somebody like this. He's clearly got an axe to grind.
You know, speaking of Bajaj, I was at a mall the other day, like during the Black Friday saga, and obviously, like there were huffs and puffs, and there was this lady who was driving a Bajaj, and she parked like by the door basically, because she doesn't need a
'cause you
full
can
parking.
drive right
She was
up
just like
there.
on the side, and people were like crowding around her, taking off their phones, like, "Sorry, can we see inside your car, please? We just want to see." She was so annoyed, like you can see in her face. She was probably like, "This is the 5th person today. I can't deal with it." And she was so pissed. She just got out. She let them go inside, take a tour of her car, and then she just went about her day. I was so sad for her because she was just like trying to get a special, and people were literally stopping in awe, like, "Oh, can we see your vehicle? Oh, can we look inside?" Imagine if somebody comes up to you and just says, "Can I look inside your car?" A complete stranger. Hell to the no. What do you mean?
But look how we've talked about it so many times on this show, and we're all curious to see what it looks like on the inside, right?
Yes.
I mean, we are, but are you going to walk up to a random person who's just parking their little Bajaj and say, "Sorry, can I look inside your car?" She was visibly just so frustrated, and I felt so bad for her. But I was like, damn, you also got lucky. You're parking right on the curb. You don't need a whole parking.
If she doesn't,
But it was
want any
interesting.
attention. She could always go and park at the back. Yeah, always go and park far away from the entrance, and nobody's going to walk over to look at it then. Right?
And she had to go from like the driver's seat to the other. It was just such an interesting way that she exited. Like she just didn't get out the front door. She went like hopped on over and scooted over to the other side and then got. I was also like, what's going on? But I was like, let me leave her. She's going through a lot. But yeah, it'd be like that.
Yeah, the Bajajas. Some comments here that I think are quite interesting, like Congo Christmas. I love the way it's changed to Christmas. He says, "The left is utterly deranged by Elon. They hate him because they can't control him, and he repeatedly tells them to fuck off and carries on winning every time they try to cancel him." That's true. And they went the same level of derangement when Donald Trump won in, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I've got bad news for them. He's going to win again because Joe Biden is basically a corpse at this point.
Sure.
And it's too late for them to inject someone else into the campaign. So get ready, America. 4 more years of Donald Trump coming your way. And if you're on the left and that drives you crazy, I look forward to seeing you scream and lose your mind on TV. Because
I don't even think he'll make another term, to be honest.
I don't think is he interested even. Like he's got enough power and money to do whatever he wants to do. Trump right now, I think.
No, I'm talking about Joe Biden.
Oh no,
Joe
Biden's
Biden
got to
has another
go.
term. He's gonna.
No.
You know he's running for president, right? You know he's
really
Lebang.
Yeah.
You don't pay attention to any of this stuff.
Well, it doesn't. I'm not really interested in Trump, no. But this is interesting. I'm actually surprised that he's running again.
You don't need that he's the leading candidate for the Republicans again. He's not even participating in debates. He's so far ahead of the others.
Like
this is Biden again. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
The world is definitely ending for sure.
No, it's not ending.
But the point is that there seem to be a bunch of people who are just they need to have someone who's their focus of hatred. Now, whether it's Donald Trump or it's Boris Johnson or it's Elon Musk or it's Cyril Ramaphosa, whoever it has to be, they've got to have that one person that they can lose their minds about because they need to be deranged about somebody. Right?
It's the people going. As long as people are talking, that's what it is, right?
Insane. It's that's the only word for it. Insane. And to allow something in the world to so completely consume you that you can't. I mean, you hear people who have like PTSD over an election result, and you're like, you can't be a functioning member of society in the modern world and allow yourself to be sent into a state of apoplexy over the results of an election. Like, you need to be adult. This is the kind of person who, if they didn't get an ice lolly, would just fall on the floor in the supermarket at age 2. But at age 2, as Lebang will tell you, that's acceptable because at age 2, you don't know how to behave and you think that your needs supersede everything else in the universe. But when you're an adult and you're behaving this way, that's just very embarrassing and will put you in a position where no one will take you seriously at any stage of your life going forward, right?
It's like obsessive, I almost want to say get a life, but people make this their whole lives. This is what all they talk about, all they think about, and then they become obsessed with it. And that is all. Their entire identity becomes elections and what's this and what's that. And if they don't win, the world ends. Oh, it's sad. It really is sad, Gareth. And almost everything we discuss kind of boils down to get a life. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't have a life and your own thing going on, this is what happens. Like, you'll become open to all of these things. It's an idle mind.
Well, Simpiwe says, our own Simpiwe says, not every employee that leaves a company is upset and seeks revenge. The reality is these corporations aren't great, and where there's smoke, there's fire. That's true. But what he's talking about, these are problems that everyone in self-driving cars is dealing with at the moment. Bakabantu mentioned the trolley problem earlier in the comments. AI is able to solve a lot of problems, but it's going to be imperfect because guess what? Morality and ethics are imperfect. You've got these situations that they design where, for example, if you're in a car and there's one old granny on the left-hand side of the road and there are like 5 school children on the right side of the road and you have to hit one of the two, which is it going to be? Both are morally and ethically unconscionable, but there's no way that you can get out of killing someone. Now, AI is no better than humans at deciding how to do this. It's not a logical decision.
Yeah.
Am I right?
It's just kind of a decision you have to make in the moment. You have to kind of weigh it up.
These are some of the problems that this guy was talking about. And let's look at what he said. He said he's very worried that leaked data is an issue at Tesla. But again, there's so much leaked data going on everywhere. I mean, every time, I don't know about you, but how many phone calls a day do you have to ignore or that you answer and it's some call center trying to ask you to sign up for something that you don't want?
Yeah.
That's also leaked data. So that's happening. It's not Tesla specific. So that's his number one concern. Then he said, there are customer complaints about Tesla's braking and self-driving software. Well, yes, because guess what? Cars are not yet at the point where we can just sit in them and eat chips and the car drives you safely to where you're going. So some of that is still up to you. Anyway, he says concerns internally had been ignored. He said he was concerned how AI was being used to power Tesla's autopilot service. Its autopilot feature, for example, includes assisted steering and parking, but despite its name, it does still require someone in the driver's seat with their hands on the wheel. No way, really? Do you see what I mean? Definitely someone who they've dug up to grind an axe. And if you don't see that, honestly, I don't know how to help you.
I think that it's like a thing of once you leave the company, right? You're no longer making an income. This guy might be wanting to just get a bit, of something on his name so he can actually get out there and write a book or something like that.
I mean, we don't know that. He could have another job.
Did you ever hear the name Lukasz Krupski before this?
No.
And do you think you're ever going to remember that name on any other day in your life going forward?
No.
I think once you've watched enough episodes of like Black Mirror and all of these shows, you were allowed to be a bit skeptical. You know, let us listen to all three sides of the story. Is all I'm saying. You know, let's hear him out. Luka Shnabishngashki, let's hear you out, bro. Maybe there's something you saw that we didn't see. We weren't on the inside. If we believe you, okay, cool, we'll act on it. And if not, we'll keep it moving. But yes, obviously it's not all going to be perfect. That part it's obvious. Like we're still in the figuring it out part of this whole thing. But let's just hear him out. I don't believe this has been pulled out of, out of nowhere. Clearly, there's something that he's saying that has some sort of truth in it. Let's just like open our minds, is what I'm saying. And that's why I don't drive an electric car yet. Not because I can't afford, just because skeptical.
Right. Trump as president, says Snipes, made a big difference in the US. The economy was viable. People had jobs. Yeah, I don't think it's even disputable at this point that the American way of life, everything about living in 2020, 2022, 2023 has been harder and worse for most Americans than it was before that.
They've lost a lot of power.
And it's not all because of Trump. There's a lot of that's post-COVID. And he made some terrible mistakes. He was not a perfect guy. Nobody is. You're not voting for a daddy. You're voting for an administrator. But
and he didn't draw a salary.
So what? Please, he didn't need the money. It's like, but Cyril does. Cyril takes a salary, even though he doesn't need the money, right?
Yeah.
He's also a billionaire, and you don't see him like, oh no, don't worry, don't just give my salary to the poor. You don't see that.
I saw there was an interview where they kicked it off with Trump, and this lady said, "Are you ready?" And he said, I hate the fact you started that because
she said, are you ready for some tough questions? It was
you're right.
That was
you're right.
From 60. I think Leslie from 60 Seconds.
Yes.
No, 60 minutes. 60 minutes, yeah.
60 minutes. And then he just said, you guys give Joe Biden a free pass by asking him what kind of ice cream he's buying at the shop. But then you give me the tough questions. And he said, I don't mind the tough questions. I encourage the tough questions. But you're only giving me the tough questions. And no one else. And so I kind of see it because, that whole media bias in America is rife.
Well, that's a big problem. Anyway, you were going to see Kendrick Lamar on Saturday.
Oh, who, me? Gareth, I'm the most excited person in South Africa right now. It's been such a good year for concerts, for entertainment. And in the next few days, I'm going to be laying my eyes on Kendrick Lamar. For those of you who don't know who Kendrick Lamar is, Google. I cannot wait just to be enthralled in just entertainment and like poetry and energy, and it's going to be so great. And just a couple of weeks ago, I saw JID, I saw Denzel Curry and Stormzy. So this part of the year has been fire for me as far as like seeing live performances. And the nice thing, Gareth, is that it's actually going to be happening in your neighborhood. So I'm not even driving far. I'm going to Pretoria.
Awesome.
I'm just going to be down the road. I'm just going to be at this amazing concert. And the interesting thing about Hey Neighbor is that they're doing like a camping thing as well, right?
It's Hey Neighbor.
It's the Hey Neighbor concert.
Tyla's also going to be there.
Of Tyla, your crush. So what's interesting is that they are doing the whole you can sleep there on Friday, you can sleep on Saturday as well. It's interesting because look at it this way. People are actually going to be flying in from all over the world and from Cape Town and Durban to come down to Joburg. Or shall I say,
hang on a second. Are they letting people camp in the streets?
Gareth, not in the streets.
No,
There's it's a festival where they've put different like partitions of accommodation.
Lebang,
trust me.
That last concert you went to, there was so much shit about people camping. I can't even tell you. People paid 16,000 Rand to sleep there overnight.
Not my experience.
And their tents were reassigned to musicians.
I had an amazing experience at that last festival. It was like literally the camp, the tents were so nice. It was just
Did you pay for it?
I'm very against camping. I think camping is a terrible way to
There's
awful.
penthouse tents these days. We're not talking camping like back in the day where you just go in there and it's a mattress or it's just a sleeping bag. There's actual beds in there with lights and showers. There's everything. It's literally like glamping. It's glamping on steroids. Yes, way.
Did you get this glamping?
Oh, I'm speaking from my experience. I was in a penthouse.
How much did this cost?
Look, it costs a lot of money and you get what you pay for. So you're paying for
10K plus.
Yes, if there's like 4 or 5 of you.
I mean,
like,
if it comes to the shower and running water, then I feel like it's
the
worth
shower
it,
was
but
trust me, this weekend's gonna be dope. Tickets are still available. Come through. And Kendrick Lamar's only been in South Africa once, so he's coming on the Saturday. Who else is performing? There's a lot of people. It's a Swedish House Mafia.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Her is gonna be around. Khalid is actually performing on Friday. So
one of my friends ran into him at a bar last night.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
We're in the West End.
I think it was. Don't know if it's in Pretoria or in Joburg.
There's no way.
Somewhere. But yeah, she literally has a picture of them. I saw it on Instagram.
That is so
casually
cool.
ran into him.
So you also went to Tyla's album announcement party last week. So just explain to everybody who Tyla is, and because you got all excited now, and Lebang was saying it's your crush. So who's that?
Sing it for us.
So Tyla, I've spoken about it on the show before. She's a South African. Well, she's actually the biggest, I'd say, pop star on the Africa.
She surpassed Miriam Makeba on the Billboard.
She put out one song which blew up. It's called Water.
Sing it, right?
I'm not gonna sing it. Then I got invited. Sony Music sent me an email. They invited me to her album announcement party. She rocked up. She just came back from the US. She's been on all these interviews, like with Fallon and all of these guys. She's doing really well. She is representing South Africa on a global scale.
Did you meet her at the concert? I mean, at the announcement?
I did actually. I have
a picture
right here. Have a look. I was even wearing the shirt.
May we swear.
Yeah, have a look at that. So I went with I saw Barrett there. Now Barrett has a podcast in Cliff Central called Celeb Savant. He was there as well. And so Jane saw the picture of Barrett and Tyla, and then she sends me a message like, Ryan, I can't believe Barrett met Tyla. So I send her my picture, Gareth.
This is our Jane.
This is our Jane.
Okay.
Our Jane Malachi. And you should have heard, this is what she sends me. She didn't come to work. So it was on the Thursday night last week. I sent her a message on the Friday morning. She sends me this on the Friday morning. She didn't come into work. This is what she sends.
I can't believe you met Tyla. Oh no, Ryan, I'm screaming. Ryan, no, Ryan, I'm not coming to work today. You rather phone me and tell me how you and Barrett, how did you manage to take a picture with Tyla? Fuck.
That is a lot of.
Guys, I wish if I was coming to work today, Siraz. You met Tyla. I can see Nandi Madida. She's famous, but not that famous. But the only celebrity that exists in this country for now is Tyla. Oh my God, I was gonna sing the song. Make me harder. Let me show Lerato first.
Okay, so she's obviously she's very excited. Next time you go to one of these things, you take her with.
Oh yeah.
Oh no,
she's gonna love it.
She actually, I want to see if we can get her in the studio, but I'm working on it.
There's a kind of like a petition starting in the comments now. Now you have to sing Water.
No, I'm not.
There's at least like 5 comments. And
Travis Scott just did a remix. You can go listen to it.
Come on, Ryan.
But it was so much fun. We got to meet her, and she's going to be at Hey Neighbor. She's busy doing rehearsals for Hey Neighbor.
Hey Neighbor's going to be so fly. Like everybody's going to be there.
You,
I mean, Gareth, just come take a walk from your house to the venue.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be too difficult, right? Hey Neighbor.
You know what I mean?
I'm just looking
Hey
at it
Neighbor.
now.
Look it up.
Is it close enough to Gareth that he's going to hear it and be like, oh man,
Gareth will call the cops on us. Like,
so
I'm trying to
loud.
sleep.
Like,
My
so
name is
annoying.
Gareth Cliff.
No, I won't spoil it. Are you joking?
Nah, you
Okay, so we've got Kendrick Lamar, we've got the Chainsmokers,
right?
we've got Swedish
Wait,
House
Chainsmokers
Mafia.
are coming?
Doug,
Yeah.
let's
Oh,
go, bro. Let's
man.
go, Doug.
This will be the second time they're coming. I saw them when they came to Ultra the first time.
It's
That
gonna
was
be
mad.
Santini,
Yep.
Jack Parrow, Shimza,
Yep.
Shimza's
Desmond and
gonna
the
light that thing up.
Tutus. This is big. Who do you
It's
think is putting this?
huge, dude.
I mean, it's So Heineken is sponsoring
it's a range. It's a range of promoters, and they all like really credible promoters. It's not like, you know, those ones where it's like, oh, what happened to the festival? It's actually a group of credible promoters who have come together to do one big festival, and it's their first one. Can you imagine what it's going to be like in the next 3 years? It's going to be massive.
This is what I'm saying to everyone. Like, what people don't realize right now is South Africa is the next destination. Everyone is so over the US, they're over Europe. They've all been there. They've done that. Africa is the one place. Now you get people like Tyla popping up, right? Now they're like, oh, but what's going on there that like this pop star is coming out of nowhere? Now she goes on all these talk shows. She talks about our country. Now they're all like, no, we have to come through.
This is not in Pretoria. This is in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's on some farm. Oh yes.
The address is Rhino Park, R515 Pretoria. So it still falls under Pretoria. Gareth. It's inside. Okay, it's in Brongospruit, but it still falls under Pretoria.
You just said I could walk there. This thing is halfway to
I was capping. Gareth, I was adding spice.
Misleading people. A whole lot of people got excited. They're like, oh, okay, well, Victoria's not too far. Let me do that. This thing is like,
there's park and rides, people. There's park and rides where you can leave your car at like the Gautrain and then you'll ride from the Centurion.
I'm skeptical about sleeping over.
Dude, trust me.
People who go sleep over at music festival, it's not hygienic.
Ryan,
that's part of the experience, Mr. No Moisturizer.
Listen, you get people like Lebang who love a festival where it's like 2-3 days. She can go wild. She can let loose. She could basically be listening to music while she's in her sleep, while she's awake, stumbling around, drunk, sober. She's meet new people. This is a very Lebang thing, right?
Yeah.
And she loves it. And why the hell shouldn't she be allowed to let loose? She regards it fun. You are a different kind of person.
Don't even moisturize, bro.
Yeah.
No.
No, I did the festivals thing back in the day, and it's
When, dog? Because you're only like 20 something. When did you do it?
I did it probably 2018, 2019. Because my friends were DJs and I'd go to the different rage parties, and then from there we went to these like festivals in the mountains.
That's
like
amazing,
Smoky Dragon and.
But I don't want to blow anybody's occasion for fun here, but. Some people are not camping or glamping people. They're just not like I was offered these VVIP tickets once to a festival, and it was in some dusty place in Limpopo or something. And they guaranteed me like running water and electricity and all these amazing bands. And it's just not for me. So I knew, and that's where I would have said, no, but I've got this friend, Lebang, let her go. Here, give her.
Sure.
She would have had the best time ever. Some people are into that stuff and some people are just not.
Look, you're in luck. If your vibe is not the full camping experience, you can just get a day ticket. So you go there for the day, you enjoy it for the day, you get back into your car and you drive home. So not everybody's forced to be there sleeping in the tents and, being wild and hippie like the rest of us. You can just go and then go about your day and sleep in your bed at home. But some of us, we want the whole thing. We want to leave there on Sunday, drenched, finished.
You are a modern day hippie and you love this stuff. And I know you went to Rocking the Daisies and that's your vibe and this will be your vibe as well. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm just
That's okay. And that's completely okay. This is a safe space for all of us to be ourselves and enjoy the things we enjoy and enjoy the things that we like. That's all.
So this is funny. Louis says, I love how Ryan says back in the day. Dude, I have blocks in my freezer that are older than you.
Back in the day, 2018.
Yeah. No, it was a wild time.
Oh, man, hilarious.
But Gareth, I also want to bring up something. Yesterday, there was a big announcement. I don't know if you saw, and I don't know how to feel about it. Ross Lermouth has left Prime Circle.
Well, then it's not Prime Circle anymore.
But that's what I was saying. And they're saying Prime Circle's still going to continue on. And I'm like, no, whether Ross likes it or not, he is Prime Circle.
No. If you're the lead singer and you leave the band,
come on. We've seen this before. Justin Timberlake left NSYNC. He went solo. Beyonce left Desnisha. Once the steering leaves the car, it's no longer moving. The vehicle stops. It just is what
But
it
by
is.
the way, I love the other guys from Prime Circle,
Yeah.
Marco. They're very good people, and they know what they're doing, and they're fantastic musicians. But if they can't come to an arrangement with Ross where they start a new band on their own, or they could say, you know, X and Y from Prime Circle, previously from Prime Circle, that's fine. But it's not Prime Circle without the lead singer. It just isn't. It's like that idiot Roger Waters, you know, with Pink Floyd. Like, don't tell me that you're Pink Floyd. You know, it's like the Beach Boys. They keep on changing because I mean there was 5 of them or 4 of them. And every time they change the lead singer, and then they get a new drummer, and eventually there's like one guy left from the original Beach Boys in there, and he hardly even gets up and plays anything because he's so old. And they call it the Beach Boys. No, I'm sorry. It's not. It's not the same band. If Ross isn't there, it's not Prime Circle. Sorry.
Did he say why he's leaving? Or
so he said that he's going solo after 23 years of being with the band. But for me, right, like I've been a fan of Prime Circle. I've seen them many times live, and they headline every place they go. They're one of the last few bands that really made it. Like they can rock up anywhere and be a headline. And now with Ross going solo, I love Ross. Like, you know, I've heard him on a few features other than Prime Circle. Like he was on a song with Newtown Knife Gang, which was really, really good. Spencer's an awesome vocalist, and him and Ross just really work well together. But like I don't see a good solo career incoming because it's so difficult trying to go solo now, and you have an established band.
It's tough in music, and not all bands get along. I mean, you know, people are still cut up about the fact that John Lennon left the Beatles. But Darren says when Tom left Blink, they released 2 albums. Nobody cared. Now that Tom is back, it's Blink again. David says you can replace any member except lead guitar and singer. That's correct. I mean, Metallica, he rightly points out, have been through 3 bass players so far. Nobody cares. Nobody cares who the bass player is.
When you're the lead singer, you're the steering. You are the face of the band.
Right.
So
but also the sound, like that voice, people get attached to that voice. You know?
Sure. In fact, when he does go solo and he drops his own albums, people will still think, oh, that must be the new Prime Circle album or song. And then it'll be like, oh, actually, no, it's just his. It'll take a while to adjust. However, having recently watched the Robbie Williams documentary about his entire career and how he started out in a band and then he went solo and freaking had an amazing solo career and then went back with the band at some point, I do believe that anything is possible. Anything is possible. And this could be, you know, his time to shine as a solo artist. And this could work exceptionally well for him. It could work exceptionally well for the band. In the next 20 years, they'll do a nice reunion tour, you know, and
you said it. It's the steering. I mean, if Beyonce had stayed in Destiny's Child, sure, they had some great songs. I love Destiny's Child, but there's no disputing the fact that Beyonce is a much bigger star than she would have been if she'd clung on to Kelly Rowland and Michelle Williams, right? I mean, we know who needs them.
No, well, not who needs them. They also, as individuals, are doing their thing. Shout out to them. But definitely, had she not left, you know, Beyonce is Beyonce.
Well,
Justin Timberlake was Justin Timberlake at the peak of his career. Once you leave a group and you go solo as the star, you'll most likely rise above.
Plus, let's not forget, when you leave a band as the lead singer or whatever, and you go off and you do your solo career, then like another 20 years later, so in 40 years over Ross's career, he's been with Prime Circle 23 years, add another 20 years where he does his solo stuff. And then when we're all really old, they do a reunion tour and everybody goes, oh, wow, we're going to see them back together again after 20 years. That's an opportunity to make some serious money. So it's clever.
No, it's clever.
But also you have a whole catalog that you're just kind of ditching now because you can't go sing Prime Circle songs if you're not Prime Circle, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's definitely an interesting observation. Like, will he be allowed to perform Prime Circle songs, or will it be a thing of every single concert that he does, he goes, I've got a surprise for you. Guess who I'm bringing on stage? And then out come the Prime Circle homies. You know what I mean? That's such a crazy money grab. Oh, I'm here for it.
It's actually...
Let's be clear about this. So if the lead singer or the lead guitarist leave a band and they start their own solo career, it can go up or it can go down. I mean, some of them are tremendously successful, some of them are not. But the other guys who are left can't call themselves that band anymore. That's my point.
True.
And they're not. No one's lining up to hear the bass player and the drummer keeping things going. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. So that's the rule of bans. We've dealt with it now. There's no need to discuss it anymore. Listen, I've got to wrap this up, guys, because I have to rush to the airport. I'm in Cape Town tomorrow. We'll be doing the show, though, and it will be live from Cape Town tomorrow and Friday. So I'm going to be heading down for an event that we're doing with our friends at Tourvest. Going down to see Anthony Mederer for Blind History.
Very nice.
A lot of other things we've got to do. So I got to get cracking. Let me tell you what's coming up after the break, because Ryan will play this out for you. It is one of my favorite interviews. Again, I keep saying this, but this is absolutely true. We've just hit the ball out of the park in the last couple of weeks. This guy's called Luai Ahmed. He is from Yemen, and he grew up programmed with all the biases that Yemeni culture gave him, but he had a curious mind and the determination to find the truth. And he moved to Sweden at a young age with his parents' blessing. His mother said to him, go to Sweden, become Swedish. And obviously, after learning Swedish and immersing himself in the culture, he decided he would go on social media and start expressing his opinion on things. And that is where it all became very, very interesting, because he got into enormous trouble with some people. Some people loved it. But the guy is a real free speech advocate, and he has lots to say about everything that's happening in the Middle East today, about Islam, about the word Islamophobia, and the way that Sweden works. So take a listen to this interview. It's coming up next. We will see you tomorrow live in Cape Town. Ciao.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Come on, you gotta boil down to one car. Which is George's car of the year? Just one.
Just one. Just one.
You're not gonna tell me.
I am. I'd say it is between the Mercedes Benz,
Okay.
the one I damaged the rim on.
I heard about that story.
Yeah. The EQ and the BMW iX3.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
I'd say those two are my equal competitors for the year.
Mine has to be the Toyota Cross Hybrid.
I didn't spend enough time with the Toyota Cross. I think if I had the car like those, if I had the car for longer,
Yeah.
I just took it literally for a drive.
Fair enough. But let's see what happens next year. It's been an incredible year, and a lot of the cars that came out this year were great. So yeah, let's see what happens in the coming year, 2024.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, my next guest is a brave man, and I'll tell you why in a second, but he just posted this the other day. He said, I write this with a heavy heart. In the last 2 weeks, my brother and my best friend, the closest and dearest men to me, disowned me. My brother told me, If you go to Israel, you're no longer my brother. My best friend told me I'm basically supporting ISIS because I said Israel has a right to defend itself. So this is someone who's expressing unpopular opinions, isn't even afraid to do that with his best friend and his brother. So anyone like that is bound to attract a lot of positive and a lot of negative attention. And I'm one of the people who happened to have found him on the internet. It's not like he's trying to hide, but he's on X. He's very vocal about his opinions. And it is a great pleasure to have Luai Ahmed on with us this morning. It's such a pleasure. And congratulations on all the infamy that you seem to be getting on the internet lately.
Thank you. Thank you. I actually started writing in English because I used to write in Swedish for the past 4 years. But once I changed to English, I got a lot of attention because the things that I'm talking about concern a lot of people. I've been writing about Islamism and integration and migration and these kind of like major conflicts in Swedish. And I've gained a bit of a following in Sweden, but you know, Sweden is a tiny country. So once I changed to English, a lot of people from all around the world have been more interested in what I have to say. So I'm really happy that a lot of people are voicing a lot of support to the things that I'm saying. And they're also happy to see that there's someone who has grown up within this culture, who's critical of it and who does not want to see Europe succumb into the dogma of Islamic radicalization. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll get into Sweden in a minute because that's a fascinating cultural melting pot as well. And I know you've had your own experiences there, which have very much influenced the things that you've been saying on social media. But let's just start with your story at the beginning. You're originally Yemeni.
Yes. I grew up, I was born in Sana'a, Yemen, and Sana'a is one of the most conservative Islamic countries in the world. The vast majority of all the women actually wear the niqab and the hijab. So I grew up never seeing a single woman in my life show her hair, except for my mother. My mother is a feminist human rights activist. So that's kind of been the beginning of my inspiration. My mom was also married off when she was 8 years old, and she had to fight for her rights ever since she was a child. She didn't want to get married. She didn't want to wear the niqab when she was 11. So she's constantly had a struggle to fight against this dogma of Islamic conservatism. So she sought education. She got a divorce when she was a child, and she ended up learning and being knowledgeable and dismantling this kind of insanely conservative, ultra-Orthodox Islamic ideology. And she passed that on to her children to be critical, to seek education. And so I grew up in Yemen for 20 years, and I soaked in the waters of Islamism and conservatism and hatred towards homosexuals, Jews, different people. And by different people, I mean anybody who is not Muslim, who does not believe in Islam. We have a word for everybody who is not a Muslim, which is kafir or kuffar. So I grew up in all of that for 20 years. And then 2014, I left and I went to Sweden. It's a long story on how I was able to leave to leave Yemen and go to Sweden, but thankfully I did. And once I arrived in Sweden, I had a shock because I in the refugee camp that I was in, I realized that everybody who was coming to Sweden was, unlike myself, Islamist, wanted to change Sweden, was not able or willing to adapt to the culture that they were coming to. They looked down upon Sweden. They thought that the Swedish culture and the Swedish way of living was false. And that was a bit of an awakening to me, because I thought like, oh my God, I thought that everybody who came to Sweden wanted to be Swedish, wanted to live in the secular, open-minded culture that allows women to take off their scarves and hijabs without harassment. Like my mother, my mom is the kind of person who should have been moving to Sweden. But alas, everybody that I met in the refugee was completely against this. And I learned Swedish. I started working at, restaurants. I worked in hotels. I worked for a bit, for 2-3 years. And during that time, I perfected my Swedish, and I went to university and studied international migration and ethnic relations for a bit. But my main focus was to perfect Swedish, because I wanted to write in Swedish. I wanted to engage in Swedish politics, and I ended up doing that.
That's phenomenal. You've left your father out of this story, because he also plays quite an important part, certainly from the opening paragraph, which I read from your brother, that your father was very much an Arab nationalist and someone who believed that Palestine needed to win in a war against Israel, and that Palestine's position was actually a position that all Muslims should aspire to fight for, to hold. And that was completely different, it seems, to the opinion that you have now.
Yes, I did grow up also believing in the Palestinian cause. Like I wrote in yesterday's post, is that in the Middle East and the Arab world, there are two religions. There's Islam, and that is a very dominant religion that by law kills you if you do not adhere to it, or if you criticize it, or if you leave it. And the second religion is Palestine, or as we call it, Al-Qadiyya al-Falastiniya. Al-Qadiyya al-Falastiniya, which means the Palestinian cause. That word, that sentence has a very strong ring to it, because it is not, Islam is kind of like your giving culture and religion, but the Palestinian cause is a fight. It is kind of like, many people are familiar with the word jihad, which means like the either internal or external fight to spread Islam and defend Islam. The Palestinian cause is seen from another lens. It's seen from the lens of the Jews who we hate, have mobilized themselves, and they have attacked us, and they have stolen our land, and they have a plan to take over all of our lands, corrupt our religion, corrupt our societies, destroy us. And that is more of a proactive religion, where you have to fight back. You have to go. That's why Yemen is bombing. That's why Yemen is bombing Israel right now, because Yemen is one of those countries who has been one of the most pro Palestine. Whenever you enter the stores, whenever you enter supermarkets or any just normal stores in Yemen, there are Palestinian posters everywhere. So yeah, I grew up with that. I grew up with my family's mentality. And then when I went to Sweden, I did not even believe in the Holocaust. I thought it was just like my society says, it is, a Jewish plot.
Propaganda,
propaganda to gain sympathy. But no, they were not burned. And if they were burned, then that would have been a good thing. So in Sweden, I started my journey into kind of cleaning myself from that, and more like educating myself, really. And I ended up well, before I came to Sweden, I had already left the Islamic conservative mindset. I had already read books by Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. I read books into evolution, critical of the the Islamic culture, and that kind of like cleaned my brain from the attachment that I had to the culture. But I still went to Sweden with anti-Semitism. I still went to Sweden with kind of like a weird eye. So living in Sweden, I was able to clean that off. And 4 years after being in Sweden, and after learning Sweden, I started writing about my experiences and about where I lived, what I grew up, and all of that.
I just want to stop on this idea that there are two religions, because I think it's quite a breakthrough concept. The first being Islam itself, which, as you say, is in no doubt about what it means to be a Muslim, and what it means to leave Islam, and what it means to convert to Islam. And there are very strict rules here, and it's not some soft thing. Like the Western world has this idea, because Christianity is light and weak and not particularly. And reformed, but it's not particularly heavy-handed. And as religions go, Christianity seems to be kind of interpreted by every individual Christian in whatever way they prefer it to be, with no real dogma overarching or hierarchically extending itself down the chain.
Well, there was dogma before. Sorry for interrupting. There was dogma.
No, there was. You're right, and obviously there was the Reformation, and there were all the things that have happened since the Protestant religion, or the Protestant forms of Christianity have branched out, and as it's gone all over the world. And we should be grateful for those reforms because, Catholicism 600 years ago was not a pleasant thing. It was Galileo didn't think so, and so many others, the victims of the conquistadors, the Crusades, they would have said to you that this is a very violent and angry religion. Maybe Islam is there now. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think Islam is very clear about what it is and what it stands for, and it's not really negotiable. People in the West seem to think that it's just like the soft version of Christianity. And then this Palestinian cause, which seems, according to what you've explained now, to be a proxy war. It's kind of a thing that all Arab Muslims, certainly, but even Muslims beyond the Arab world, can get involved in and feel like they're participating in an existential struggle against an existential enemy. And that if you are participating in this struggle, that it somehow, gives fuel to your identity as an Arab nationalist or as an Arab Muslim in particular. Do you think that's fair to say?
Absolutely. It's also important to note that, and I've written a lot about this in Swedish, that normal non-conservative Muslims who move to Europe, like say someone who's just normally drinks alcohol in Saudi Arabia or Yemen secretly, once they come to Europe, once they come to Sweden or Britain or the US, they turn conservative. They become more, they attach themselves more to the religion. And the reason for that is, you read, like in Yemen, you read a lot about alcohol, you read about the kuffar, you read about how women who do not cover themselves are dirty, you read about all of these fantasy things that you're against, but you never see them. Women in Yemen and Saudi Arabia and in the vast majority of the Muslim world, you do not see your enemy in the books. You only hear about them. Once you move to Europe, once you move to the US and the West, you live within that society that you have learned to hate and learned to loathe. And you become active in your religion. You make sure that your family, that your daughter and your sisters do not become that way, because they might end up in hell. The alcohol is everywhere. So there is the jihad, which is the struggle or the internal struggle. And with the Jews, with the Jews and Israel, it's the same thing. Before the creation of the Israeli state, there was persecution and hatred towards Jews in every single Arab and Muslim country, but there was not this idea of we have to actively exterminate the Jews. Because yes, while they do attack us in our own societies, they're not well mobilized. They do not have their own armies. They do not have strength. They only work from the bottom down. But once the creation,
it's so weird. I just want to stop you here for a second, because again, going back to your journey to Sweden and the journey of so many, I mean, the huge wave of Muslim immigration to Europe is already becoming Europe's big political question. It's happened individually within countries and within the EU, and some people are comfortable talking about it, and some people obviously are not. But why is there this resistance to assimilation? You would think that people who'd moved from a place like Yemen, which is a hard country to live in, you think about people who would flee wars in Iraq or in Syria. You think about people like the Kurds in northern Iraq, or like the people who are in Saudi Arabia, perhaps being persecuted to this day by strict Wahhabism or something. You would think those people would be embracing of the idea that they're in a society now which is free and where they can participate in that and enjoy the freedom that they were denied in the country that they've just fled from. And yet the need to belong is so great that they revert to those things they were taught when they were young, and they become more religious, according to your interpretation.
I think it comes down to, I do believe that if the United Nations Alien Convention's definition of refugee was applied, and the people who did come to Europe or allowed into to Europe on refugee basis actually fulfilled the quota, which is a well-founded fear of persecution, then people would have assimilated. Because if you do have a well-founded fear of persecution in the Middle East, say you're an atheist who cannot, fulfill your freedom of expression. You cannot exercise criticism of the state. If you're a journalist who really has a critical thought, critical mindset towards the culture, if you are a homosexual who would get killed by the state, if you were someone who left Islam, if you were a Christian, if you were a Jew, if you have a well-founded fear of persecution and left the Middle East and came to Europe, the probability of you actually wanting to assimilate is very high. And this is something that I also see from my own experience, is that most of my friends in Sweden who are well assimilated, well established, learn the language, love Sweden, are atheists, ex-Muslims, homosexuals, lesbians, women who have been almost killed by their family for leaving their hijab. Those are like my friends in Sweden, people who actually do have a well-founded fear of persecution.
I mean, the irony also is that the only country in the Middle East where you would have any rights in those groups you've just mentioned is Israel.
Yep.
Right? And Israel's the only country where you'd have free expression, where you would be allowed to be an apostate, as the term goes, for those who leave Islam. So you, I'm assuming, have adopted your new life, in inverted commas, and taken on a Swedish identity, but you've lost a lot along the way, and you've had to be prepared to sacrifice a lot. And when I started this interview, I read that opening line from your blog, and I think this is really valuable information for people who are perhaps in a similar situation and circumstance. Maybe they're listening to this in some part of the world where you're not able to be free to express yourself. And you need to know what the cost of that is. Do you want to go into what you've lost, and then we can look at what you gained?
Well, I do think that I've lost when I started writing in Swedish about migration and integration around 4 years ago. Two of my friends started translating my writings and translating my tweets back then, and they don't want to be friends with me anymore. And that's the beginning of me, like the loss of the loss of as a price of freedom of speech. But actually, I do come from a very secular and open-minded family, so I never lost family or friends because of my my mindset and my thinking. Actually, my mother is a very outspoken feminist and human rights activist. So people kind of thought, well, of course, he's his mother's son. Of course, he rocks the boat. But I take it a bit too far, according to them. So that's why, like, I never lost any of my family members or closest friends because of my criticism towards Islam, criticism towards the culture. Most Muslims actually do agree that the Islamic culture is a failure, is that we technologically, scientifically, medicinally, we are failures. And they are very well aware of that. So when they see me saying that we need to change our mindset, we need to stop killing people for thinking differently, you'd have, at least 30%, 40% of Muslims who say, yes, you're right. I would say the majority disagree, but I come from that enlightened part who wants to have a reformation in the Islamic world. But the Palestine and Israel thing came as a shock to me, and that's why I wrote in my last tweet that I came to the realization that Palestine is a religion, because in the Islamic world, you have families disowning you for criticizing Islam or for leaving the religion. And I never really had family members, doing that to me because I come from an enlightened family. But it turns out that Israel and Palestine is another religion, a deeper religion, I would say, because that's where my brother drew a line. And he said, if you go there, if you continue to support the Israelis and the Israeli state, then you're no longer my brother. He never said that when I criticized Islam and I criticized the Islamic culture. So I do think that has made me fall into a realization of how anti-Semitism. Well, I've always known that anti-Semitism is deep, runs deep in our blood in the Arabian culture. I mean, you grew up in mosques that repeatedly keep saying that we have to destroy Israel, we have to kill the Jews. So I didn't know that ran so deep in my family's blood. Like, I keep telling my family members, but we've learned through my mother to be critical towards the culture that we live in. But why is this certain thing off limits?
Yeah.
And they say that Israel is committing a genocide, and that's all that's all the information that they have to give me for why they're cutting ties with me. And yeah, it's sad. And the funny, well, it's not so funny, but it's kind of funny as well. But I do tell my brother and my family and my friends is that I am not even voicing any support towards the war right now. I am not saying that Israel has to continue bombing Gaza. I say that things like Israel has to exterminate Hamas. I don't know how. I truly do not believe that the current bombing that's happening is going to eradicate Hamas completely. I think actually quite the opposite. I think Hamas is going to gain so much more support in Palestine, like in the West Bank. So I don't know what the perfect way. I could be wrong as well. It could be a way to subjugate Hamas and make Palestinians realize that they need to de-radicalize. But I don't know.
You're going to have a tough time exterminating an idea, and that's really part of the problem, is that Hamas is an idea. But when you talk about how Israel must exterminate Hamas, I mean, we're not even talking about the Middle East here. I live in a country on the southern tip of Africa where our government just hosted a Hamas delegation who came to visit South Africa. Now, most governments in the world wouldn't touch Hamas with a 10-inch, a 20-foot pole with a health inspector on the other end, because they're such odious people. But our government seems to be very happy to cozy up to them. And it's that kind of thing that really confounds me, because first of all, I don't believe that there's anyone in our government who even understands what's happening in the Middle East. I think they're choosing to associate with what they believe is some kind of brotherly revolutionary movement, some sort of liberation struggle, which is far away, but has echoes of what they went through here in South Africa during a much more obviously moral struggle against racism, effectively. But it strikes me as odd that it has spread beyond the Arab world. It's spread beyond, just places like Yemen, where it's more understandable to me. Do you find that odd as well?
It is odd, but I have bad news. South Africa is not the only country that has kind of like been very cuddly with Hamas, I would say. Sweden has been.
Yeah.
This is something that has not come out in international media. I think I'm going to write something about it sooner or later. But our Social Democratic Party, which is the leading political party in Sweden, they have run Sweden for the past 90 years, I think. I could be wrong. They've only had, I think, around 8 years where they lost the elections in the past 90 years or so. They have a parliamentarian. His name is Jamal al-Haj. And Jamal al-Haj is Palestinian. He has been seen in different Hamas conferences. He attended a Hamas conference, even though the political party told him not to attend the conference. He still attended it. And he was seen making a speech while there are Hamas flags behind him. He has been seen, and there have been pictures taken of him hugging a Hamas leader. And all of this has been documented, and the Social Democratic Party has still not let go of him. This is one of those topics that is ongoing in Sweden. Why is the Social Democratic Party, the leading party in Sweden, not letting go of this guy who clearly has ties with Hamas, clearly sympathizes with them? When he was asked,
can I ask you something? This is something that confounds and completely confuses me. We talked about the lack of assimilation by certain conservative Muslims in Europe, but there's a corollary to that. There's another story, which is the equal and opposite story, and that is that white Western Europeans, particularly in left-leaning and liberal countries like Sweden, have this idea that the most important virtue they can have is tolerance and acceptance and this welcoming attitude. And it's probably because they're not entirely sure what their culture is. And we can talk about which cultures are dominant, which are less so, but it turns out that places like Sweden don't actually know what they stand for. And this is probably part of the problem for them in why they've allowed themselves to be, I suppose, abused culturally, to be subsumed into. I mean, there's certain parts of Sweden, you know this better than me. There's certain towns and cities where there isn't Swedish spoken. Arabic is spoken. There are certain places where Swedish women are told not to go. And this is all very much hush-hush. We don't talk about this in public because the Swedish would hate to be seen as being intolerant. But the reality is that parts of their country have completely been overrun by a culture that isn't from there, that isn't native to Sweden, that isn't the culture that Swedish people recognize in any way. And they've let it happen, which is on them. It's not on the Muslim populations who've come in and have changed this because there has been resistance and they managed to stand up to it. It's just steamrolled right over the Swedes.
Yeah, you're sadly right there. And if you take the subway in Stockholm from Södermalm, which is like the white hipster, well, Östermalm, the white hipster parts of Stockholm, a 15-minute ride to Rinkeby, and you're in Mogadishu or Somalia. And these two worlds rarely, if they ever meet. And you're right. I think in Sweden's case, they exotify the idea of multiculturalism. They do not want to face the fact that it is problematic. I was on the Swedish television like 2 years ago debating multiculturalism, and there was this woman in front of me. We were debating, and I told her multiculturalism does not work because we're from the culture that I come from. We kill LGBTQ people, we kill atheists, we kill free thinkers. So once that arrives here, you can't. It does not work. Many of these people are going to want to continue on this road. And you know what her reply is? Her reply was, "Well, actually, Luai, we have societies in Europe like Poland and Hungary that are anti-women, that are anti-LGBTQ people." I swear I was so in shock at her response, and the moderator just went on. I felt so gaslit. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Do you have no idea what I just told you? Like, we kill these people. We kill women. We kill people who are different.
Muslims are not hiding the ball in these conservative Muslim countries. This equivocation, and to go back to Israel for a second, because this is where I think you've been absolutely honest and astonishingly brave. To say, because there's this idea that there's both sides. If you're a good journalist or a good person, you'll look at it from both sides. And I hear people who argue with me on social media. I don't know if I could call all of them friends, but certainly some of them are people who I've known for a long time, say to me, "Oh no, but what Israel's doing now when they bomb Gaza by trying to get rid of Hamas, that is genocidal. So actually what happened on October the 7th is the same." How do you even react to a person who really genuinely believes that?
I mean, you could tell them the truth, but there's a high chance that they're just going to look past the truth. And the truth is that Israel targets and wants to kill terrorists, the terrorists that want to kill them. That's their main target. I have met IDF soldiers who are Muslim, who are Bedouins, who are Iraqis, who come from the same blood and the same culture of these same people that they're accusing of wanting to kill. And Hamas wants to kill every single Jew. So not just Jews, Israelis as well. So the definition of genocide is also a part of the definition of genocide is having the intention of ethnically cleansing an ethnic group. Israel does not have that intention. They want if wanting to eradicate a terrorist group is genocide, then yes, Israel has that intention. But that's not the definition of genocide. Genocide is wanting to eradicate and kill a large number of people. That is what Hamas wants to do. So I say that what happened on October the 7th was a genocide. What is happening right now is not a genocide. It is the attempt to eradicate a terrorist group that hides under tunnels, that has no respect or value of human life, uses their own humans as shields, kills their own people, want to die. I was talking to a police officer in Israel, and she was telling me, when we were standing on the same street where the Hamas truck came in with all their soldiers, they all ran, like all the police officers started running into the police station. That police station, by the way, right now does not exist. It has been destroyed to the ground because of the fight that happened there between the Hamas soldiers and them. And the police officers were telling us that this is not a normal enemy. You cannot, the way you're not equipped, you cannot fight with someone who wants to die, because to them, they don't care about losing their lives. They want to be killed. So they're going to start running right at you without any fear, because if you shoot them, if you kill them, they go to heaven. That's how Hamas fights. While the Israeli police officers, which one of them was Lebanese, by the way, when they fight, when they try to fight against Hamas, they want to protect their lives as well. That is not how Hamas fights. This very distinction is something that many people who engage in this debate do not understand, or do not want to actually fathom.
Well, I mean, isn't it Ismail Haniyeh, who's the nominal leader of Hamas, who said, "You love life, we love death." You know, you can't come to terms with someone like that, because they're actually not in it for this game. They're not following our rules of engagement. They're in it for the afterlife. And that's a very different goal. And therefore life is meaningless. And the life of your children or your wife or whoever else, if they are useful as a human shield for the ultimate struggle that will get all of you into heaven, then they're just a meat vehicle for your cause. And that's very different to trying not to kill women and children, which it appears by all evidence available, most of it actually sent through by Gazans, that Israel does absolutely everything it can to spare humans, particularly civilians, in a war like this. And Hamas has exactly the opposite point of view. Their whole purpose is to kill as many civilians as possible.
Right. I think another issue that is at hand, and I do think that my Israeli friends need to also admit this, is that the Israeli state and Israeli soldiers and Israeli policemen are also capable of making mistakes.
Of course. And sometimes there might be a complete maniac among them, you know? They exist. There are bad people.
Yes. And these mistakes are not definitive or defining of the entire Israeli state, but they need to be admitted. And these mistakes, like, so an example, the day that I left Israel, so 3 days ago, there was a terror attack. And so some terrorists went out and they started shooting everybody. I think they killed 3 people. And then an Arab who was armed went and he neutralized these terrorists. He killed one of them, I think. But he was holding the gun after he killed these people. Now the police officers came after the fight happened, and they saw this guy who was the terrorist. They saw dead bodies. They come in and they see this guy who's an Arab, and he had a gun. He put the gun down and then he raised his hands. What happened was the Israeli police officer killed this Arab who had his hands raised. Right? Now, that was a huge mistake, because even if you have a terrorist and who just killed people and they raise their hands, and he was actually screaming, "I'm Israeli, I'm Israeli," this guy who killed the Palestinians, you're not supposed to shoot them dead. You know? If anything, if you're panicking and you feel like there's a major threat, you shoot them in their feet. You try to deflect the problem rather than just exterminating that person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so now this soldier or police, I think it was a police officer who killed this innocent guy, is going to be put on trial, and they're probably going to be sentenced or something of that sort. Because in in Israel, in this war, in this fight, there is a rule of law where when mistakes are made, you get prosecuted. There is
Right.
a strong state of law that serves justice. This very concept of justice and democracy does not exist on the Palestinian side. On the Palestinian side, there's just this fervent of destruction of the Israeli state, no matter what the price is. No matter, there's no, oh, if you kill someone, that's wrong. No, that very concept is very, first of all, it's very Western, because even if you remove this conflict and you go to Yemen or you go to Saudi Arabia, killing apostates, killing people who are different, who are critical, who criticize Allah and Muhammad, is justified. So you have a meeting of two vastly different cultures: a reformed culture that has gone through enlightenment, which is also the Israeli culture, but the Arab Islamic culture is still in the depth of the dark ages.
What is Palestine like? I mean, I don't know if you've been there or not. I don't know if you've got friends who live in Palestine, because, again, people have this idea that the one is this oppressed state that is put upon by Israel, that everything they try to do, Israel squashes. They've made it impossible. It's power, it's the oppressor and oppressed. What is Palestine really like, and what is Gaza like from the people that who are on the ground there? You probably know more about it than me. So give me an idea of what happens there.
It is said that Palestine or Gaza, let's just not talk about the West Bank, but Palestine, Gaza is an open air prison, a concentration camp.
Right.
Now, there are many videos that show you before the war, before the 7th of October, how life in Gaza was. Have you seen any of these videos?
I've seen some of them. I mean, thanks to the internet, you're now able to see stuff that maybe you wouldn't have seen before. But I mean, a lot of these things are being posted. There are people inside of Gaza who let us know what exactly was happening on the 7th of October, because they were proud of what they were doing. Hamas people I'm talking about. They were the ones posting this stuff. People who claim that it's Israeli propaganda. I have to remind them that these are the actual terrorists who gave us the greatest insight. They were showing us how they killed people. They wanted us to see. And obviously you're talking about before that, where people were showing us what life was like in Gaza. It doesn't look like a very fun place.
Well, life before the 7th of October, from the evidence that I've seen, is not the horrible open concentration camp that people make it seem out to be.
What did you see?
Well, what I wanted to go into Gaza, but after the war, but I couldn't because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But the first-hand accounts that I've had is that before, and not just first-hand accounts, before the war, you had European citizens from Sweden, Britain, France, all around Europe, who leave their homes, like literally leave Europe, the first world, the developed, secular, open-minded welfare states, and they move to Gaza, the open-air concentration camp. Now, does that make any sense to you, that someone would leave Sweden and Stockholm with welfare, with security, safety, and move to a concentration camp and an open-air prison? That does not make any sense to me.
There's a lot about this thing that doesn't make sense to me.
That's one. The second thing is that life in Gaza was not perfect. It was not perfect due to mostly economic reasons. They don't have an airport. That you could say that Gaza was not a perfect state. It did, they don't have the same rights in terms of flying, in terms of borders, but it's just the same case in Yemen. In Yemen, during the past 10 years before the ceasefire with Saudi Arabia, the airports were closed. You know, from that kind of aspect, Gaza does not have the same living conditions as more stable countries and cities in the world. But what's brewing under that, many people will say that that's oppression, or an oppression that is being practiced by Israel, even though I don't see how that's Israel's oppression when tens of thousands of Gazans were allowed into Israel to work and make 4 times more money that they were making in Gaza.
Right.
And many of those people were the artifacts and the masterminds behind the 7th of October, because they're the ones who leaked the information. They're the ones who drew the maps of these villages. They're the ones who gave all the intel to Hamas to kill the people who invited them into their homes and into their companies. So Gaza before the war was not the nightmare that it was. What was not the nightmare that the Palestinians will try to make you think that it was. Hamas was. I do think that Hamas's authority over Gaza reminds me a lot of the Houthis' authority in Yemen, where they have these insane religious conservative values, where they have because Hamas's biggest enemy is the Jews in the United States of America. In Yemen, you also have the same thing, where the Houthis, who also took over the northern part of Yemen, and they're not recognized by the international community, their biggest opponents and enemies are also the United States and Israel, to the point that their logo, the Houthis' logo in Yemen, is death to America, death to Israel, curse upon the Jews, may Islam win. That's their actual logo. And so if I would circle back to what we were talking about a bit earlier, I do think that in the Islamic culture and the Islamic world and the Arab world has failed, especially when you compare it to the Western world. And when you fail, you have to have something or someone to blame your failures and misfortunes on.
Right.
And what's happening in Gaza and in the West Bank and in the Arab world is that we instead of successfully advancing in sciences, we're successfully advancing in the blame game, where we blame the West and Israel for our misfortunes. When in reality, before the creation of Israel, before the wars between the United States and Afghanistan and their proxy wars, we were just as, regressive as we are right now. So there's no connection there. The West and Israel has more certainly deteriorated the situation in the Middle East. At the same time, they have helped us in many ways. So in Yemen, for example, you have numerous of hospitals that are the British hospital, the German hospital, which, a part of the colonialism, but they are our most well-established hospitals. So every single local hospital in Yemen, if it is a Yemeni hospital, you avoid it. You try to go to the expensive German and British hospitals that were built by the Brits. So there are two aspects there. There's a positive and there's a negative that has come from the West, but we focus on the negative and we try to blame our misfortune on that. There's a great book called the Islam
and the West does that for you a lot of the time too, because people in the West are so terrified of being called oppressors, colonialists, racists, bigots, Islamophobe. That they will do anything. They will do every kind of mental and spiritual and emotional gymnastics to get out of those things. And we'll talk about Islamophobia in a minute, because I know you've got very strong feelings about that word. But to finish your thought here, in Yemen, you still have family who are there now?
Yeah, I do.
And how is life in Yemen as compared to, before we even get into Palestine? I mean, this is where your own family and friends are. What is life like there, and who are these Houthis that everybody's talking about?
Well, how is Yemen like before? Well, one of the first videos that I made that went viral was specifically touching upon the idea that you see hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Arabs and Muslim going about and protesting on streets, when they never did that for Yemen.
Yes.
When Saudi Arabia and Iran were having their proxy war, and 8 countries was backing Saudi Arabia, resulting in the death of almost 400,000 Yemenis, where more than 10 million children in Yemen don't have anything to eat. 10 million children.
You didn't have the magic ingredient. Your magic ingredient is Jews. If you'd had Jews involved, maybe they would have cared more, right?
And that's exactly what I said, is that if it was the Jews who were, behind this war, then the entire Arab and Muslim world would have awakened a bigger revolution than the one that we see right now. But because they were not Jews, no one gives a goddamn. Right. And so I said that, and the situation in Yemen is dire. It's always been dire. It's the prices of the food are escalating. Salaries are not being paid. More than 75% of the population is not starving, but they live under poverty. The infrastructure of the country and especially the northern part of Yemen is completely dismantled and destroyed. There is no sense of security. There is no rule of law. The Houthis, which is a Shia sect, has taken over, and they have started applying all their insane Stone Age practices. So if you're related to Prophet Muhammad, you get taxes from people who are not related to Prophet Muhammad, which should excite me, because my family has, is related to Prophet Muhammad. But it doesn't excite me, because it's Stone Age traditions that have destroyed the Middle East for centuries. So Yemen, no one cares about this, of course. You will not see protests, you will not see seminars about Yemen by the same people now who are going about hating Jewish people. And I think that's also has been driving my not apathy, but why aren't you voicing your concern about Gaza and the oppression? Why sorry, I was going to say fuck.
Well, you can hear.
So why the fuck were you silent when my people, millions of my own people, were getting killed? Millions of my people were starving. You did not say a single word. I did not see you waving the Yemeni flag.
Pissed you off on a personal level, because I've used that argument sometimes with people who are hugely passionate about Gaza and Palestine, and then they say, well, it's because my co-religionists, the other Muslims, are being killed by these Jews. And then I say to them, well, you didn't do anything with Yemen. You didn't do anything in Iraq. You didn't do anything in Syria. And not a person took to the streets and protest. Why are they performing in this case? Is it just pure anti-Semitism? Is that it?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I did say something about why. Well, I think in one of the videos or something, it was about why didn't anybody go out and condemn? No, I think it was a post that I posted a few days ago where I said the Muslim community never went out to condemn ISIS. And when ISIS was representing Islam, they were saying this is the true Islam and we slaughter people. And 2 billion people were just at home watching Muslims saying, yeah, well, we're not going to engage about this. We're not going to say no. We don't care. We, the Islamic spirit of revolt and protest and condemning just was not there. And which says a lot about the pacifism and the mainstream doctrine of Islam. But anyway, so someone commented and they referred to an article of a protest, a Shia protest that happened condemning ISIS and saying that ISIS does not represent Islam. Now, the interesting part about this is that this person was telling me, you're wrong. Muslims did go out and protest against ISIS. Now, the interesting thing is that when you look at the article and you see what happened, it was merely 1,000 or 2,000 people. Much less. I'm sorry. That was much. I was being generous there. And out of 2 billion, it was in 2017. So 2 years after the ISIS bargage. And more than that, it was a Shia protest in Ashura, which is the Shias, Christmas, you could say.
Yeah.
They were going out doing just what they do in Ashura, and they happen to have signs saying that fuck, ISIS can go to hell. They're not the real Islam. Now, these same people usually go out and protest against the Sunnis and against Saudi Arabia on any given day. It was not the Muslims going out and protesting against ISIS representing Islam. So I think that is one of the most daunting facts and realities about the Islamic world, is this: they let Islam get represented by ISIS without saying a single word. And I do think that a part of my activism is trying to say that I want to see the Muslims go out on the streets and have the same kind of like outrage condemning ISIS, condemning the Saudi Arabian state. We see this in the Iranians, the secular Iranians in Sweden and in Europe and in the West. They're the most anti-Islamism groups in the world, and they condemn these atrocities. When in Sweden there was this a seminar held in Stockholm by the Iranians in a mosque, a radical mosque. And I went inside, and when I went inside, like I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm famous in Sweden, but like people who are activists and engaged in politics do know of me. So when I went into this mosque, people know me. So they were like, "Oh, you're Luai, the critic of Islam." So they was like, "Come here, we're gonna sit you somewhere." They sat me somewhere, and they had someone from their people sit next to me to make sure that I was not recording, that I was not taking pictures, that I was not doing anything. And they knew they couldn't harm me because if they did harm me, then hell will. Then like the Swedish society would stand on oh, Luai Ahmed got killed just for entering a mosque, so they know that they can't do anything to me. But so like in front of this mosque, like when I was entering the mosque, there were hundreds of Iranians protesting against the mosque. They had this is before the Iranian revolution of against the hijab. This is in 2018 or 2019, I think. So there hundreds of Iranians were in front of this mosque protesting against it, telling them to go back home, telling them that their state is a terrorist state. So so there are these Iranians and the people who have actually lived through Islamism, lived through the oppression, who do not want it in the West. Those are the people who you will see condemning. The Sunnis and the vast majorities of the Muslims will stay silent, and they will only go out to protest when they want to voice their anti-Semitism.
So why do you think it is that conservative Muslims, or rather, let's say, radical Islamists rather than just conservative Muslims, because there are different categories here. And again, Islam is not monolithic. Why is it that more open-minded, liberal, and moderate is the word that people in the West like to use, Muslims, don't receive nearly the amount of attention that the radicals receive? And you could say this about many societies, but there seems to be, especially in Western media, a complete denial that these people even exist. I mean, it's hard for people like you. If it wasn't for X, for Twitter, I don't think that the TV channels and the radio stations and the newspapers are lining up to get moderate Muslim opinions. And that seems odd to me, because they always say when something terrible happens in the world, oh, but the moderates, not all Muslims are mad terrorists who want to spread their religion by the sword. And Islam is not dangerous. It's the religion of peace. So listen to the moderates. But we struggle to hear the voices of the moderates. Why is that?
Well, because like you said, if you're going to call them moderates, I'm not a moderate Muslim. You could call me the vast majority of Muslims do call me on X and everywhere that I'm an ex-Muslim and I'm an apostate. Well, I think it's the terminology in Islam is so different from like Judaism, because in Judaism, if you're not a religious Jew, you're still a Jew because you're an ethnic Jew.
Right.
So in Islam, you have completely different terminologies. If you criticize Islam, if you criticize Allah, if you say Allah is a piece of shit, but I still love him because he created everything. If you say that about, in Christianity or in Judaism, people will look weirdly at you, but you would still be, a Jew or a Christian. right?
Mm.
You have the right to look at religion any way you want it. Now, because if you say anything critical of Islam, if you say that Islam is not the real book, it's not the book of God, Islam is just the Quran is not the book of God, it's just a book of metaphors and fables, stories, exactly. You're immediately an ex-Muslim. You're a kafir, you're a murtad, you are, you should be killed in most parts in the Middle East and the Muslim world. So because of that, I am defined as an ex-Muslim. Even though if you ask me, I would define myself as a secular reformist Muslim. But Muslims will not agree to that. They will not. They will say that I'm an ex-Muslim, that I am a kafir, and I'm fine with that. I'm not going to sit here and debate terminology and debate what word to use to define myself. I come from this culture, and I wanted to reform, and I wanted to change. And I do think this confusion regarding moderate Muslim and radical Muslim and is also behind this fear, because people are afraid of coming out and doing what I'm doing because they would get, harassed. They would get truckloads of death threats, which I'm getting. So a lot of people are scared of that. I'm not scared of it. Like I write, I lived for 20 years in Yemen being scared. So I'm not gonna, and I've been vocal. I've been extremely vocal for the past 5 years. I've said everything that I've been saying in Swedish, but in different ways. But now that I'm saying it in English, I'm getting more people who speak English want to talk to me and want to hear what I'm saying. But I've been saying this for 5 years, and I'm not scared. I'm not going to be silent. I'm actually going to be doing this in Arabic as well, sooner or later. And the main reason that I've actually been doing this in Swedish is because I wanted to perfect my Swedish. I did not want to go on, social media and write in English. And because if I focused on English, then my Swedish would not have gotten better. So I wanted to become to speak Swedish perfectly. And that's why I wrote and I spoke in Swedish the whole time. I wanted to assimilate. But now we're 10 years later, when I feel like my Swedish has gotten, no, I wouldn't say perfect, but it's borderline fluent. I write my own articles in Swedish. So now I can venture into English and take the fight into the English speaking world. So, and I'm happy that a lot of people want to listen to what I'm saying. I mean, it's crazy. I did not expect it to happen this way, but in the past 1 month or 6 weeks, I've gotten 100,000 new followers on X and 60,000 followers on TikTok, which says that there is a major drought for people like myself. I mean, you have people like Ayaan Hirsi, but Ayaan Hirsi is not as vocal as she should be.
Yeah.
I'm kind
in
of
fact, I think she's just. I think Ayaan Hirsi Ali just has recently converted to Christianity, among other things. But she's been a very outspoken critic of Somali practices like female genital mutilation, and the more egregious parts of Islamism. She's been very vocal, and I think she's been extremely brave. And also, we need to hear more women like your mother from that part of the world, who have things to say, because I just want to read to everybody who doesn't know you, and this will probably give them the motivation to follow you, even if they disagree completely. You said, "Dear Muslims, the world is scared of us. The world is laughing at us. The world is worried about us. There are legitimate reasons for their worry that we can't keep denying. It is time for us to flush the word Islamophobia down the toilet, start looking in the mirror and ask ourselves, how did we get here? How come the largest and most thriving terrorist organizations in the world are Muslim? How come terrorists successfully use Islam to mobilize thousands of Muslims? What is the problem with our leaders, our imams, and our religion? Why do we keep repeating these Stone Age traditions that have failed us and continue to fail us? The world has left us behind. 1,400 years of us stuck debating which is the correct sect. What is the correct interpretation? Who is a real Muslim? How can we convince people to become Muslims? Why on earth would anyone want to become Muslim today? They're all scared of us. They're laughing at us. They're worried about us. Delete Israel and the West from the world, and we would still be as ignorant as we are. We would still be stabbing each other. Stop blaming them and look to yourself instead. The enemy is not out there. The enemy is within. Chief among the observations that people may have about that very, very powerful letter is this idea that you think that the word Islamophobia isn't as relevant as some people will say it is. Just in America, 2 weeks ago, the White House issued statements against Islamophobia. Do you think this is a red herring?
I think just like racism, the word racism, like racism. Okay, there's a difference between racism and Islamophobia, but the point that I was going to make is that like the word racism exists and it's horrid and it's terrible and it should not exist and we should fight it. But the word racism and racist is just, has been beaten to death and not for valid reasons. You could say like everything that I've been saying during this podcast could be labeled racist by a lot of people, and it's
there'll be people who will, trust me.
Yeah, and it's absolutely not true, and it's the same thing with Islamophobia. But here's the thing: I use two different words. There's Islamophobia, which is valid, which is great, which is rational, because fearing religion when a religion is oppressive, when a religion kills you for criticizing it, it's rational. Like people say constantly, phobia is something it's an irrational fear, but it's 100% rational, necessary even, to be scared of something that wants to kill you for criticizing it. So no, it's in the word Islamophobia. So it's like the irrational fear of Islam. There's no such thing as an irrational fear of Islam. There's only a rational fear of Islam. Now, the word that I advise people to use instead, which would be more valid, which actually would be more real and make more sense, and I use it, is Muslim phobia, because that brings it to the people. That would be the irrational fear of Muslims. The irrational, just you see any person who's a Muslim or says they're Muslim, you immediately just feel like, oh my God, this person might kill me. Now that's quite irrational because there are 2 billion Muslims in the world. But even there, the Pew Research statistics show that more than half of Muslims have radical views and ideas. So if you're homosexual, then you should be Muslim phobic, meaning that you should be not scared, but you should avoid Islamic circles because there is a high chance that would not go great for you.
Yeah.
I have one of my closest friends. This is also one of my awakenings. He in Rosengård is Malmö. Malmö is the southern city of in Sweden, and it's like the most Muslim populated. There was a party. We went to the same university, Malmö University, and then we were going to a party in Rosengård, which is like the most Muslim populated area. So I invited him, like, hey, come to the student party in Rosengård.
Yeah.
And he told me, Luai, there are 1,000 reasons that I would get killed there. First of all, I'm blonde. Second of all, I'm gay. And that was actually one of the saddest things that I've heard in my life, because you're Swedish. This is your country. And you're telling me you're not going to come to a party because you're scared of getting harassed or killed in your own place. Well, he actually, to be honest, he didn't say killed. He said I would get like beaten or it would be the end of me. But I don't think he meant he would get killed. But in that area, there is a hatred towards blonde Swedes. And he said that he would, that it would be the end of him also because he's gay and he's scared of these areas. And now this guy is Islamophobic because he's scared of Islam, but he's also Muslim phobic because he believes or he knows that the Islamic community is not accepting of him being homosexual. So he has every right to be both Islamophobic and Muslim phobic. Now, if you're not gay, if the chances of you being persecuted, if you're not someone who criticizes Islam like I do, if you're not someone if you're a friend of Islam and Muslims, you have the right to be, you don't have the right to be Muslim phobic or Islamophobic. I'm not saying you don't have the right to be, but the terminology is important, because Muslim phobia and Islamophobia are two different things. There's the
Right.
religion and there's the people. And this is a distinction that people have to take into accountability, because I don't think that Muslim phobia is a good thing. I think fearing and being afraid or hating or discriminating Muslims is not a good thing. It is bad. It is like racism. It is in the same pattern of racism and anti-Semitism, prejudices, being fear. Unless you're gay, unless you're an Islam critic. If you're an Islam critic, then you are, under a lot of scrutiny. You could get killed. You could get bullied. You could get hurt. So, and I stand by that. But I do think, like, when it comes to legislation, using the word Islamophobia is insidious, because it is giving Islam, which, by the way, the literal word Islam means subjugation.
Right.
Subjugation to Islam.
To God. Yeah.
To God, to Allah. So the very idea of a Western state using the word Islamophobia legitimately instead of Muslim phobia tells you that it's not just the Muslims who are a part of the society, but Islam, which is also political ideology. So Westerners, I'm done with leftist Westerners. It's the same people, like leftist Westerners have no idea of the outside world than the little tiny white villages that they live in. So when they call me right-wing, fascist, Islamophobic, racist, even Nazis, there have been leftist Westerners who hear me talk about Islam and say that I am Nazi. So I I don't care, and I don't want to care, and I don't engage or negotiate with ignorant people. But when it comes to negotiating with Islam and Muslims, I do that because I feel it is my plight. I want my community to get better, to evolve, to move past the threshold of ignorance that has been tainted by the culture and the religion that we can't seem to let go of. So it is my plight and duty to argue and engage with the Muslim community and stuff. I do also, like, when I talk to the West, like, I have a video that I'm working on. Well, I have a lot of videos that I'm working on, but one of them starts by saying, "Dear West, I don't have any slides of hope of changing the minds of leftists, because most of them are just a lost cause, just like Hamas."
Yeah, I kind of feel that when people are so steeped in it, and you said that the Palestinian cause has become a religion, I feel like leftism has replaced Christianity in many secular minds, and leftism, wokeism, this idea of whether it's Marxism of a kind, it's kind of taken up the God-shaped hole in some people's lives. And again, you're reduced to having quasi-religious arguments with people who don't want to hear about rational ideas. They don't want to hear about facts. They don't want to have debates. If you don't agree with them, you are kafir, as you say. Can't have those discussions. So there's no point in trying to waste your breath or your energy on people who are already of the opinion that you're just evil because of your point of view.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what Ayaan Hirsi was writing about, where she's like, we cannot use secular tools to fight against such a dominant religion as Islam. What we have to use is Christianity. I understand where she's coming from, because, like you say, leftism, or I would say feminism, equality, welcome refugees, green energy, climate change, those are all the new religion. They have come to fill the void that Christianity has left in Sweden and Western Europe. And I don't know how to feel about that. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to preach something I don't know. What I do think is that I think maybe if nationalism, but not ethno-nationalism, there's a huge difference between cultural nationalism and ethno-nationalism. I think cultural nationalism could have saved Sweden and Europe from the demise that they find themselves in right now. Because if you, in 2007, or like a long time ago, I think 2009,
Yeah.
the leading social democratic party in Sweden said literally this: you immigrants, you have a culture, you have something to hold on to. We Swedes, we don't have anything.
Right.
We only have meatballs. She said something that's literally like that. And then you had the Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt literally said this. The Swedish being a Swede, or Swedishism, if you could say Swedishism,
Swedishness, yeah.
Swedishness is barbarian. All the modernism that we have in Sweden has come from outside. So for the past 20, 30 years, there has been a loathing and self-hatred and oikophobia within the Western culture, which has said that we need to bring in other cultures that will enrich us and make us something, because we are nothing.
It's almost, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's almost like white Western civilization, if you could put it in those terms. And it's a very peculiar thing. I've seen it even here in South Africa. There's it's almost like a masochism. It's like the more you can kind of denigrate yourself, your history, your culture, the more acceptable you will find yourself in 2023. And it's become it eats people's culture, identity, sense of self-confidence. It's just eaten that away in some places like Sweden, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There's actually a book titled precisely that, Marxism, Nationalism, I think, by Göran Adamsson, a Swedish writer. And he describes it very funnily, but sadly, truthfully, is that he says that the multiculturalism is the mirror of ethno-nationalism. So like you have two ideologies on both sides. The one is ethno-nationalism, which is people who will tell you that in Sweden, there should only be ethnic Swedes. There should not be any non-ethnic Swede. And that's the extreme side. On the other extreme side is this idea that the ethnic Swedish people are stupid. We should bring other people in here to enrich it and make it a great country. And like Mona Sahlin said, you have great cultures, we have nothing. Like Reinfeldt said, everything that comes from outside is modern. We are barbarians. So that's the other extreme. Now, the difference is the ethno-nationalists, in Sweden, they get a vote of 0.0, I think 0.8% or 0.3, much less.
Yeah, so it's tiny.
To be able to become a part of the parliament, you need 4%. So they have a long stride into getting there. While on the other side, the multiculturalism, who are just as extreme, but on the other side, they are the leaders of the country. So and he calls it masochism because it is this like self-loathing, this kind of like destructive scenario that they play out, and it's sad. It's disheartening, especially for someone who came here looking for a culture. I came here wanting to adapt to the culture, and it exists. The Swedish culture exists and it's there, but it's being denied by the leaders and the people who make policies. And it's like seeing the Swedes being destroyed by their own leaders and their cultural commentators.
It's extraordinary. It's absolutely wild. And, comparing it to kind of where you came from in Yemen, it must just boggle your mind that this is how Western civilization behaves, how it folds in on itself. It's just crazy. So what do you think the future is? What is the area where you're most excited about in terms of hope, in terms of turning this narrative around, not just with respect to Israel and Palestine, but the future of Arab culture, the future of Islam, the future of your people, the Yemenis? I mean, these are things that must be on your mind a lot.
So I am hopeful. Okay, this is gonna sound very depressing to European audiences, but I am hopeful. I think that the Middle East is going to progress sooner or later. We see this in Saudi Arabia, where when political will exists, when the Saudis realize that their oil money is not going to serve them for long, and they have to open up and become more accepting of tourism, accepting for women, let women drive. The Saudi Arabia is even jailing and imprisoning preachers who are preaching Wahhabism and extreme Islamic ideas. Saudi Arabia, So when there is political will, when there's will for change, I think the Middle East is heading towards modernism very slowly, not like the West, but we're going to have our own different version of enlightenment. It's not going to be as bright as and technological, I think, but it will come thanks to the revolution that has been introduced by the internet as well, where you have these Yemenis and these Somalis who open their phone and watch TikTok and see the world unfold in front of their eyes. So I think there will be a modernization and more acceptance and understanding in the future in the Middle East. As for Europe and the West,
sorry, I just want to say that it's also down to leaders like Mohammed bin Salman, who I think sees in Saudi Arabia that there isn't a future for a country that wants to remain in the Stone Age, and for a religion that at its purest, and I use purest with some reservation, but from the point of view of some people, at its purest is actually not helping those countries and the people of those countries to evolve. We see how beautifully the UAE is blossoming. We see how very Oman as well is all of these countries are moving, I think, in a quite positive direction, where they're integrating themselves into the world rather than the other way around, and they're making lives for their own people better.
Yes, so I think that is true, and we see countries opening up. Morocco as well, and Tunisia, especially Morocco and Tunisia, have been also some of the leading countries in moving towards secularism. And I'm very hopeful about that. I know that Morocco and Tunisia are going to be the most secular countries. I mean, they're already having like pride parades, but they're being like dismantled and stopped. But they are like moving towards futuristic Western ideals very slowly. But they've also cracked down on like Morocco is one of those countries that criticism of Islam being an apostate is things that should be normal. And I think that is the beginning, the first building blocks into dismantling Islam and Islam's power on the communities. So yeah, it's happening very quickly. Like in my lifetime, like as I said, it's happening quickly, but like in the coming 200, 300 years, I'm very hopeful. So that is the positive news. The bad news, and the foreign minister of the United Arab States also said this, is that while the Middle East is trying to progress and move towards the future, the Muslims and the conservatives and the radical Muslims who move to Europe are not. It's the exact opposite. They have they cling on to Wahhabism. They cling on to these primitive thoughts and ideas and roots that distinct them from the West and Europe, and they will continue to do that because they find themselves in this crossroad between the West and the Middle East, and they have to cling on to it. And a part of it, a big part of it, is inferiority complex, is that you come to a country, you have to work your ass off in Europe. You have to work 3 times more than the Swedes to get to where to get to be as equal as them, because it is their country, it's their system, it's their language. Like I moved to Sweden when I was 20, and I had to perfect Swedish. I had to spend 4 or 5 years learning the language, perfecting it, just to be able to speak as normally as a Swede. So obviously, I had to work harder in every single aspect of my life. You cannot thrive as an immigrant if you do not put 300%. And after putting 300%, you will also have to expect that you're not going to earn or receive as much as you have put in, because it is a Swedish country, it is a Swedish language. I have put so much more work in my life into learning in the past 10 years than most Swedes, because I come from another culture, another country. That's just the reality. And that is something that strikes for me. I have a brain. Okay, that was a bit rude. Now I have a brain. I came here with that mindset. I was not expecting to be like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer in 3 months, like many of the people who come here believe. And so I have that awareness, and I don't have that inferiority complex, but rather I have respect for reality and how things work. And I'm happy with what I have. Many people who come here get struck by, oh my God, Sweden is not what we thought it was. I didn't become a lawyer in 3 months. And that hits them so hard because they see how things work so perfectly for Swedes. And it hits them so hard. They see how Swedes have such a beautifully homogenous society, and they have nothing. They have just their brothers and sisters and mothers and the ghetto. And that makes them either cling on to their roots, which is, wherever they came from. So during graduation time, the graduation period in Sweden, most immigrants wave the flags of their countries. They go, everybody runs out, and it's like this huge celebration during graduation from high school. And everybody waves, like the Swedes wave the Swedish flag as a thank you. We love our country. Most immigrants who are born here, who went to school through taxpayers' money, who lived their entire lives here, who should be thankful and grateful to Sweden and raise the Swedish flag. The Iranians do, by the way. Most Iranians raise the Swedish flag.
What flag do they wave?
The Albanians wave the Albanian flag. The Somalis wave the Somali flag. The Yemenis wave the Yemeni flag. The Iraqis wave the Iraqi flag. The Palestinians wave the because they are identityless. They don't feel like they are Swedish. Well, actually, if they were to debate an ethno-nationalist and an ethno-nationalist tells them go back home, they will say, I am Swedish. And when they go back home, to Somalia or Syria or Iraq, they don't feel Iraqi or Syrian. They feel Swedish because they've not assimilated, but they've integrated so much into the system and into the culture. But yet they still wave the flags of their home countries because they feel like that's their roots, and they don't feel the same kind of Swedishness that a blonde Swedish guy feels. And that gives them an identity crisis. One of the reasons that I have integrated successfully in Sweden is before coming into Sweden, in the airport, my mom told me, Luai, I want you to become Swedish. I want you to perfect the language. I want you to read Swedish newspapers. I don't want you to read Yemeni newspapers. I don't want you to read Arabic stuff. I want you to become a part of that society. Wow. And I want you to do that, because if you don't, then you will end up like one of those immigrants who have identity crisis, where their body is in Sweden and their mind is in the Middle East, and they have an internal clash that they will never solve. So I followed my mom's advice, and I feel I would never wave the Yemeni flag. I will always wave the Swedish flag, even though I'm not like a super nationalist who will wave the Swedish flag. But if I were to graduate, or I would be in a ceremony where you raise flags, I would raise the Swedish flag.
Well, I mean, it doesn't take much to be called a nationalist in Sweden. You just have to speak Swedish and you're probably a nationalist. But your mother always knows what's best. And in this case, I'm sure that her advice is continuing to serve you well. Look, I don't know you. We've met for the first time now, but it strikes me that you're exactly the kind of person who I would want to know in Sweden. And I think,
thank you.
If there are any things to be learned from this, and there's so many, chief among them would be that by expressing yourself and by having different views, you make yourself more interesting. And you're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it because these are truly the things you believe. You have exposed yourself evidently to many different points of view, some that are deeply embedded in your childhood memory, some that are cultural that you'll never be able to rid yourself of, and I don't think you'd want to, but some that you've used to help you along the way. And I'm just absolutely astonished at how you've taken on Swedishness, but you haven't lost a damn thing, if you ask me, when it comes to culture, because you can still be proud of where you come from. You can be proud of people like your mother and your father, and you don't have to lose anything. There is a way to make the world better, and we just mentioned the UAE and Saudi Arabia who are moving in that direction. And I think there will come a time, I hope it's soon, where people won't look at each other and go, oh, that's a Muslim or that's a Christian, and therefore there could be a problem here when we talk about certain subjects, where they can go, that's a fellow human being, and we may have disagreements about the supernatural, or we may have different ideas of where we're headed, but we can find a way because we want to get along and we want to make the world better. And I think it's people like you who are at the vanguard of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Your words are very kind, and I do think that like one of the main reasons that I am vocal is because growing up, the main person that I saw who was kind of resembles me in any way was Ayaan Hirsi.
Yes.
But I didn't see many guys doing it. And I thought, like, why aren't there more people like that? Why aren't there 1,000 Ayaan Hirsis out there?
Right.
And they're there, but they're just scared of the backlash. They're scared of being scrutinized. They're scared of the death threats. And, you know, my mom has received a truckload of death threats for her activism, for not wearing the hijab, for not succumbing to the societal norms. And I think I carry her genes in that aspect, is that I really don't care. And I do hope, I have a lot, you know, I've lost like my brothers and my best friend because of supporting Israelis. Now, many of my Swedish friends have lost their family members and best friends because of supporting the Swedish Democrats, which is the right-wing political party that wants to stop Islamic mass migration. So this kind of like consensus sickness is not just a Middle Eastern thing. And I hope to inspire people to be able to vocalize their thoughts and to verbalize their minds without fearing, you know, losing people. Because if you lose your integrity, if you lose your freedom to express yourself, to say what you actually think, then you're not living you're not living a full-fledged, beautiful life. So
couldn't agree more. What a place to end it. Thank you so much. It's really great to talk to you, Luai, and I hope we'll speak to each other again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.